It was a chilly December morning, just 2 days before Christmas. The airport was full of the usual hustle and bustle, travelers rushing from gate to gate, bags rolling across the floor, and the constant hum of conversation blending with the announcements over the intercom. Officer Nia Grant walked beside her K-9 partner Max, a Belgian Malinois who had been her loyal companion for years. They had seen it all together, from quiet mornings like this to high-stakes, life-or-death situations. But today, something felt different. Nia noticed it first. Max, normally calm and focused, was moving slower than usual. He wasn't pulling or alerting, but something about his stillness caught her attention. She glanced at him, and for a moment, it felt like he was looking through the crowd, beyond the chatter and the clattering of luggage. His head was slightly tilted, his ears perked. Then, without warning, he stopped. Max's sudden halt was subtle, but Nia felt it. She instinctively paused too. The air between them shifted like a silent warning passed from him to her. Max's gaze locked onto a little girl standing near the vending machines. She couldn't have been older than 7, clutching a large brown teddy bear to her chest. Her eyes were wide with innocence, oblivious to the storm brewing in the terminal. Nia narrowed her eyes, trying to figure out what had caught Max's attention. The little girl seemed normal enough, her red ribbon tied neatly in her curly hair, her bright sneakers blinking with each step. But Max wasn't a dog who reacted without reason. He didn't alert unless something was off. "Max?" Nia whispered almost unconsciously. The dog didn't move, still locked on the girl and the bear. Nia's instincts flared. There was something wrong, something hidden behind that soft plush toy. Her heart began to race. It wasn't just the girl, not the parents, no. Max was focused entirely on that teddy bear. "Excuse me, ma'am," Nia called out gently, stepping forward toward the family. The father, dressed in a gray hoodie, turned with a polite smile. "Everything okay?" he asked, clearly confused by her approach. "Just a quick check," Nia responded smoothly, keeping her voice calm. "Routine scan. Mind if I take a look at the toy?" The mother glanced at her husband before nodding. "Is there a problem?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern. No problem at all," Nia reassured her. "My partner's just a little curious, happens all the time." But her eyes were already scanning the stuffed animal in her hands, and deep down, she knew this wasn't going to be a simple check. Max hadn't moved. His eyes remained locked on the bear as though he could sense something others couldn't. "Sweetheart," the father said, crouching beside his daughter, "can you let the officer hold Mr. Wiggles for a second?" The girl hesitated, her small hands tightening around the bear. "He's mine," she whispered, almost protectively. "It'll just be for a moment," the mother said softly, placing a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. With a reluctant whimper, the little girl finally extended the bear to Nia. As Nia took the teddy bear, she felt the weight shift in her hands. It felt wrong. Not in the sense of being broken or out of place, but something about it felt off, too heavy for a stuffed animal. Max was still staring, unwavering, a silent sentinel. Nia's pulse quickened as she carefully examined the bear. There was nothing unusual on the surface, no zippers, no hidden compartments. But Max's focus told her everything she needed to know. There was something more inside. "Can you step over here with me?" Nia asked, her voice steady but urgent. The family followed her through the terminal, oblivious to the growing tension, but Nia couldn't shake the feeling that this was the start of something far bigger than just another day on the job. Little did she know, the calm routine of this Christmas Eve was about to shatter, and Max, her trusted K-9 partner, had already picked up on something no one else had. Something hidden, dangerous, and waiting to be discovered. Max didn't bark. He didn't growl or show any signs of aggression. He just sat. His posture was still, his eyes fixed on the little girl and the teddy bear she held so tightly. It was a strange sight. Max, the dog who'd alerted to explosives in the past, who'd sniffed out danger hidden in bags and crates, wasn't giving the usual warning. There was no jumping, no pulling at the leash. But Nia knew that when Max stayed this still, when his focus was absolute, something was wrong. She had worked with him long enough to trust him completely. And right now, his silence was as loud as a scream. Nia's hand tightened around the leash, her instincts kicking in. She moved forward, stepping lightly around the girl and her parents, trying to act calm even though her gut was telling her otherwise. "Excuse me," Nia said softly, her eyes not leaving Max. "Is it okay if I take a quick look at the toy?" The father, still smiling, looked down at his daughter before answering. "Oh, it's just a stuffed animal, officer. I'm sure it's fine." Nia wasn't so sure. The mother, a little more wary, looked between Nia and her daughter. "Is there a problem?" she asked, her voice low. "No problem at all," Nia replied, her voice steady. "Max is just a bit curious, that's all. It's a routine check, happens sometimes with these things. Can I just have a look?" The girl, clutching the bear tighter, glanced up at Nia. There was a small tremor in her hands, though Nia wasn't sure if it was from fear or just from holding something so tightly. The child's lips parted as if she was going to say something, but the father stepped in before she could. "It's just a bear," he said, a little too quickly. "She's had it for a while." Nia nodded, offering a reassuring smile. No, sir. It's just for safety. No need to worry." But she could feel the tension in the air. Something about this didn't sit right with her. She took the bear from the little girl's outstretched hands. It felt heavier than a normal stuffed animal, like something was hidden inside. Max remained focused, eyes locked on the bear, his body unmoving. Nia turned it gently in her hands, inspecting every inch. The bear looked ordinary at first glance, its soft fur and stitched features harmless. But the weight, it was odd, too heavy for just stuffing. She felt a knot form in her stomach. "Max, easy," Nia murmured. But the dog didn't move. He was perfectly still, as though he knew exactly what was hidden in the bear, even if she didn't. The parents were growing more uneasy now, watching her every move. "Is everything all right?" the father asked, his voice tightening. Nia hesitated before replying. "We just need to make sure everything is safe. Nothing to worry about." But the unease was growing. Max hadn't shifted. He hadn't made any attempt to break his focus. He knew something was off, and that was enough to make Nia's heart race. She carefully placed the teddy bear back into her hands and gave a small nod. "I need you both to come with me for a moment," Nia said, her voice calm but firm. "We'll do a quick scan in our secondary room. It won't take long." The father's eyes narrowed. "Scan? For what?" "Just a precaution," Nia answered. She could feel the weight of the situation pressing on her. Max hadn't given his alert for nothing. The little girl glanced nervously between her parents as they followed Nia down the corridor. Her teddy bear, the thing that had always comforted her, was now something much more dangerous. The calm routine of their holiday trip had just been shattered, and Nia had no idea yet how deep this rabbit hole would go. But she knew one thing for sure. Max had already seen something that no one else had. Nia's heart pounded in her chest as she led the family through the sterile hallway of the airport's secondary inspection room. The little girl, still clutching the teddy bear, walked silently beside her parents. The father's hand was firm on his daughter's shoulder, but his eyes flicked nervously between Nia and the bear. Max walked beside them, his eyes never leaving the stuffed animal, his focus unwavering. He seemed to sense the gravity of the situation more than anyone in the room. Every step they took felt heavier, as if the world was quietly holding its breath. "Stay calm," Nia told the parents, trying to ease their growing anxiety, but inside she was anything but calm. She could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating, and Max's stillness only confirmed that something dangerous was hidden within that bear. The inspection room was a cold, clinical space with bright overhead lights that reflected off the stainless steel surfaces. Nia motioned for the family to stand near the wall. The X-ray technician was already preparing the scanner, and Max, as if understanding the gravity of the moment, sat perfectly still at Nia's side. "All right, we're just going to scan the bear. Make sure everything's fine," Nia reassured the family. But even as the words left her mouth, her stomach churned with a sickening sense of dread. She'd seen enough to know that something wasn't right. The technician slid the bear into the X-ray machine, and the scanner hummed to life. The screen flickered momentarily before the shape inside the bear became visible. Nia's breath hitched as she leaned in closer, her eyes narrowing. It was a cylindrical object, wrapped in black electrical tape. Her mind raced. That wasn't just a teddy bear. It wasn't just a harmless gift for a little girl. "Hold on," the technician said, his voice quiet but filled with uncertainty. He zoomed in on the object, trying to get a better look. Nia could see it too now. The contours of something metallic, something dangerous. The technician's fingers hovered over the controls as he examined the image. Max's body tensed next to Nia. She could feel the subtle shift in his energy, a low growl forming in his chest. He wasn't barking, but his body was coiled tight, ready to spring into action if needed. It's not just a toy," the technician muttered, his voice trembling. Nia's worst fears started to form. Her eyes never left the screen. The object inside the bear wasn't just some harmless part. It was too precisely shaped, too carefully hidden. It looked like it could be a detonator, or worse, an explosive device. "This is bad," Nia whispered, to herself, her voice barely audible. The parents were still standing behind her, their confusion growing. "What's wrong? What's inside?" the father asked, his voice rising with panic. Nia didn't respond immediately. Her thoughts were racing, but she had to stay calm for their sake, for Max's sake. "I need you to step back," she said, her voice stern now. "Everyone, just step back and stay calm. We're going to handle this." But as the technician stepped closer to the scanner, Nia could feel her pulse quicken. Every instinct in her screamed that the bear wasn't just a toy. It was something far worse. Max's eyes flicked toward Nia for just a moment, and she saw the silent understanding between them. He didn't need to say anything. He knew. They both did. "Lockdown," Nia muttered, her eyes narrowing. "We're going to need to lock this place down now." The technician nodded quickly, his hands shaking as he activated the emergency protocols. But in that moment, Nia knew. This was no longer just a routine check. It was something far darker, and it was happening right now. The teddy bear, once a symbol of comfort, was now a ticking time bomb, and they had no idea what would happen next. The moment the canister was confirmed as dangerous, Nia knew things were no longer in her control. The peaceful, busy terminal that had been bustling with families, businessmen, and travelers just moments ago now felt like a distant memory. The hum of the airport faded into the background, replaced by the sharp urgency of a threat none of them had expected. "Lock it down," Nia ordered, her voice cutting through the tension. The technician hurried to activate the lockdown protocol. Immediately, the soft chime of an overhead announcement echoed throughout the terminal. "Attention, all travelers. Due to a security concern, we are initiating a temporary terminal freeze. Please remain in your current location until further notice." Nia could feel the weight of the words settle over the room. Panic had already begun to ripple through the terminal. People stared at each other, confused and uncertain. Outside, planes remained on the tarmac, their engines silent, grounded without explanation. The calm holiday atmosphere had been replaced with something darker, heavier. Max stood at Nia's side, his gaze fixed on the bear, still in her hands. The small, innocuous toy was now a vessel for danger. Nia's heart pounded, but she couldn't let the fear show. She glanced at the family, their faces pale and wide-eyed. They had no idea what was happening. "Ma'am, sir," Nia began, her voice even despite the storm swirling inside her. "I need you to stay calm. We have reason to believe there's something inside that bear, something dangerous." The father shook his head, his face creased with confusion and disbelief. "What are you talking about? That's just a toy." "My daughter's toy." The mother, gripping her daughter tightly, looked at Nia with a desperate plea in her eyes. "We didn't know. We've never seen anything like this." "I believe you," Nia said, keeping her tone soft, but her mind was already racing. The parents weren't involved, but their little girl had been handed a weapon unknowingly, and now it was up to Nia and Max to stop what could be a much bigger tragedy. As the officers moved swiftly to secure the terminal, TSA agents spread out, taking positions at exits. Air marshals, who had been blending in with the crowd, now stood alert at key checkpoints, their hands hovering near concealed weapons. Everyone had a role to play. Everyone knew this wasn't just a scare anymore. "Max, stay close," Nia whispered to her K9 partner, feeling the tension building. The dog's body remained coiled with alertness, his eyes locked on the bear as though it held a promise of something far worse to come. Nia's hands shook slightly as she held the teddy bear in front of her, but she steadied herself. The family watched, eyes wide with fear and confusion. The father took a step forward, his voice cracking. "Are you telling me that bear has a bomb in it?" "Not a bomb," Nia replied quickly, "but it's something that could cause a lot of damage." She paused, swallowing hard. "That's why we need to be sure. Stay with me, okay? We need your help to keep everyone safe." The mother clutched her daughter tighter, her voice shaking. "We've never seen it before." "We didn't—" "Don't worry," Nia interrupted, her eyes meeting the woman's. "We're doing everything we can to make sure nothing happens." But inside, Nia's mind was racing. The fact that they were looking at a potentially deadly device hidden in plain sight made her heart race. There was no telling how many more people could be at risk, how far this operation might reach. Max's presence beside her was the only constant in a world suddenly filled with uncertainty. He was more than just a dog. He was her partner, the one who had saved her time and again. And right now, his silent strength was the only thing keeping Nia focused. The airport was locked down, but the real fear was just beginning. Nia didn't know how deep this went or how many other innocent people might be involved, but she did know one thing for sure. Whatever came next, Max and she would face it together, and they wouldn't stop until the threat was neutralized. The room was tense, filled with the low hum of whispers and the faint sound of Max's paws shifting on the cold floor. Nia stood at the doorway, her eyes on the family. The father paced, his hands running through his hair as the mother clung to her daughter, the girl still clutching the bear, though her grip had loosened. The fear was evident on their faces, but they were clearly lost. Confused. "Please," the father said, his voice strained. "We don't know anything about that bear. We've never seen it before." Nia felt her chest tighten, hearing the desperation in his voice. She believed them. They had no idea what they were involved in, but that didn't change the fact that their daughter was holding a deadly secret in the form of a stuffed animal. "Ma'am, sir," Nia spoke softly, trying to calm their nerves. "I know this is hard, but I need you to listen closely. Your daughter mentioned that someone gave her the bear." The mother's eyes widened. "What?" She never said anything like that before. The little girl, trembling in her mother's arms, spoke up in a small voice. "He gave it to me at the train station. He said it was a Christmas gift." Nia's heart skipped a beat. A stranger? At the train station? The pieces were starting to fall into place, but there was still so much left to uncover. Who was this man? Why had he chosen this little girl? What did he look like? Nia asked gently, crouching down to the girl's level. She needed to know everything. The girl looked up, her big eyes filled with confusion. He had a red coat, and his hair was gray, like an old man. Nia's breath hitched. That description matched no one she'd seen so far, but it was a start. Was there anything else about him? Did he say anything strange? The girl thought for a moment. He said, I looked lonely. Her voice wavered as she spoke the words, and Nia could see the hurt in her eyes. The innocent words of a child who had unknowingly walked into something much darker. He said I should take it, the girl continued, her voice barely above a whisper. He said it would make me happy. Nia stood up slowly, the weight of the girl's words sinking in. She turned to the parents, both of them looking more confused and frightened than ever. I'm sorry, the father said, his voice cracking. We didn't know anything about this. We just wanted to visit family for the holidays. I know, Nia said softly. I believe you. But this man, whoever he is, planned this carefully. This wasn't just some random gift, this was intentional. The urgency in her voice was clear. The man who had given the bear was the key to everything, and the clock was ticking. Every minute that passed without finding him could mean more. Lives at risk. Max's ears perked up and he turned his head slightly, eyes scanning the room as if he too knew this wasn't over. Nia's mind raced. How many more innocent people had been involved? How many had been targeted by this stranger? With a plan? We need to find him, Nia muttered under her breath. The room had gone still. Even the family had gone silent, waiting for Nia to lead them through this nightmare. The little girl clutched the bear tightly again, as if she knew it was the key. And Nia couldn't help but think, was this just the beginning? Or was it already too late? The tension in the air was suffocating as Nia led the family down the cold, sterile hallway. The parents were being escorted to separate rooms for questioning. The little girl, still clutching her teddy bear, was quietly sobbing, her fear palpable. She didn't understand what was happening. She didn't know why they were all being separated, or why the strange man with the red coat had given her the bear in the first place. But one thing was clear. The man had a plan, and the teddy bear was a part of it. Nia's K9 partner, Max, sat next to the little girl in the holding area, his presence the only source of comfort she had left. The girl's trembling hand reached down, stroking his fur, her fingers brushing against his sleek coat. Max's deep amber eyes met hers, as though trying to reassure her without words. He had always been the one to sense the truth, to find the answers that others couldn't, and right now, his calm demeanor was the only thing that kept the girl from falling apart. You're safe, Nia said softly, crouching beside her partner and the child. You're doing great. We'll figure this out. The little girl looked up, her eyes swollen from tears, but she nodded quietly. She glanced at Max, then at Nia as if gathering the strength to speak. I lied, the girl whispered, so softly that Nia almost didn't hear her. What do you mean? Nia asked gently, leaning in closer. The girl sniffled, clutching the teddy bear tighter in her arms. I didn't get it from the store. Nia's heart skipped a beat. This wasn't just an innocent mistake. The girl's words confirmed what Nia had feared. The man wasn't a stranger after all. The man who gave her the bear was someone who had carefully planned this. Where did you get it from, sweetheart? Nia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The man at the train station, the girl choked out, her voice trembling. He said it was a present. He said I looked lonely. He said I should take it. Nia's mind raced. The puzzle pieces were slowly starting to fit together. This wasn't a random act. The man had deliberately targeted the girl. This was more than a simple gift. It was a tool in a much bigger plan, and the bear was just the first step. The girl's small voice broke Nia's thoughts. He was nice, but he said it was important. He said it would make me happy. Nia's hands clenched, the urgency rising in her chest. Did he say anything else? The girl paused as if trying to remember. He had a red coat and gray hair. He looked old. I don't know why he gave it to me. He just kept saying I needed it. Max's eyes were locked on the girl now, his stance firm and unyielding. The dog's instincts had been right. This wasn't just a simple mistake. It was part of something much larger, something more dangerous. Nia could feel the weight of it all. The man had used a child to carry out his plan, and they had no idea how far this web stretched. He knew. Nia muttered under her breath. He knew exactly what he was doing. The girl looked up at Nia, her small face filled with confusion and fear. Why did he do that? Why me? Nia couldn't answer her, but she knew that finding this man, the one behind the bear, was the only way to stop whatever else had been set in motion. As the girl stroked Max's fur, Nia's heart tightened. Max had sensed something in that bear, something deadly, something only he could feel. And now the girl had confirmed it. This wasn't just about the bear anymore. It was about stopping a much larger threat. The truth was unraveling, but the answers were just out of reach. The clock was ticking, and Nia knew they couldn't waste another second. The air in the interrogation room was thick with tension. Nia stood by the window watching as the little girl sat on her mother's lap, eyes fixed on the sketch artist who was patiently setting up. The girl's teddy bear, now secured in a plastic bag, sat on the table beside them, its innocent appearance, now a silent witness to the unfolding chaos. "We're going to find him," Nia whispered, more to herself than anyone else. She didn't know how, but she knew they had to. Max stood at her side, his body still, but his gaze never leaving the girl. His silent vigilance was the only thing that seemed to ease the child's trembling. The sketch artist, a calm, methodical man, turned toward the girl. "Can you remember everything about the man who gave you the bear?" he asked gently, his voice soothing but firm. The little girl nodded, her small voice barely above a whisper. "He had gray hair and a brown tooth," she began. "He wore a red coat like Santa, and he said I was special." Nia's heart squeezed at the thought. This wasn't just some random encounter. The man had been careful, calculating. The girl described him as if he'd been someone she should have trusted. As the artist worked, his hand moving quickly across the page, the girl continued, her words filling in the gaps. "He had kind eyes, but he made me feel strange, like something wasn't right." Nia felt a cold shiver run down her spine. This man had used kindness to mask something far darker. The sketch started to take shape, and within moments the image of a man in his late 50s, with sharp features and a peculiar smile, began to emerge on the page. The brown tooth stood out and the red coat was clear, just as the girl had described. "Good job," the artist said, finishing the last details. He handed the sketch to Nia, who held it tightly in her hands. "We'll get this uploaded right away," he added, stepping aside to make the necessary arrangements. The room was silent for a moment, the weight of the moment settling over everyone. Max remained by Nia's side, his amber eyes focused on the sketch, his ears alert to every sound in the room. He could feel the danger, even if the others couldn't. Nia knew they were close, too close to let this man slip away. She watched as the sketch was uploaded into the system. The screen flickered as it scanned, and within minutes possible matches began to appear. 6 names, 6 faces. Nia's pulse quickened. The moment they had been waiting for had arrived. A team of officers entered the room, each one bringing in a suspect for identification. They were all men in their late 40s or early 50s. Their faces varied, but each of them held some semblance to the sketch. The girl's eyes shifted nervously, and Nia crouched beside her, offering reassurance. "You don't have to be afraid," Nia said softly. "Just take your time. If you see him, point him out." The girl nodded slowly, clutching Max's fur for support. Max, ever the protector, leaned closer to the child as if telling her that he wouldn't let anything bad happen. One by one, the suspects were brought into the room. The little girl shook her head at each one, her fear growing as she waited for the right face to appear. Nia felt her own anxiety building. Time was running out and the answers were slipping further away. Then the 5th man stepped forward. The girl's eyes locked on him, her body stiffening. She didn't hesitate. "That's him," she whispered, pointing a trembling finger at the man. The officers moved immediately, surrounding the man who flinched as they grabbed his arms. But it wasn't over. The danger was still very real, and they were only beginning to uncover the truth. Nia's mind raced. Who was he? What had he done? And why had he targeted this little girl? But there was no time to waste. They had to act fast. The sketch had led them here, but the mystery wasn't solved yet. The hunt had only just begun. The small observation room was eerily quiet, except for the soft click of the door closing behind them. The little girl, still clutching her father's hand, stood in the center of the room, her small body trembling slightly. Max stood beside Nia, the tension in the air thick, his eyes never leaving the child. He could sense her fear, just as he had sensed the danger earlier. "Take your time," Naya said, her voice calm but filled with urgency. "If you see him, just point him out. No rush." The girl nodded, her eyes scanning the 6 men standing in front of the one-way mirror. The suspects, all lined up and waiting for identification, looked like ordinary people, but Nia knew better. She knew they were dealing with someone dangerous, someone who had carefully plotted everything out. And the girl's testimony was the key to unlocking it all. The little girl's eyes moved from face to face, her small hands gripping her father's tighter with each person she passed. "Not him," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Not him either." Max remained still beside Nia, his ears alert. His eyes flicked between the girl and the suspects as if reading the room, feeling the danger in the air. He knew something was about to happen. The girl's gaze lingered for a moment on the 4th man. Her eyes widened slightly, then her finger, slowly lifted, pointing directly at him. "That's him," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Nia's heart skipped a beat. The man's face was familiar, but there was no time to process the recognition. The officers moved quickly toward the man, their hands reaching for him, but it was too late. Before anyone could react, the suspect lunged, his body twisting as he tried to break free. "You're not taking me," he yelled, his voice filled with panic and fury. In an instant, Max was airborne. His powerful legs pushed him forward with incredible speed. The man barely had time to react before Max collided with him, knocking him to the ground with a force that sent the suspect sprawling. The room erupted into chaos, the officers quickly jumping into action to restrain the man. "Get down," one of the officers shouted, his voice sharp. But Max stayed on top of the suspect, his teeth bared, his body tense. He wasn't letting go. Nia rushed forward, her hands reaching out to calm him, but she knew better than to pull him away too soon. "Good boy, Max," she murmured, her voice filled with pride and relief. The dog's instincts had been right again. He had stopped the suspect before he could hurt anyone. The suspect struggled beneath Max's weight, but Max didn't budge. His gaze never left the man's face, his muscles coiled, ready for any sign of danger. "Don't make another move," Nia warned, her voice low but firm. The suspect, now trapped, hissed through clenched teeth. "I didn't mean for this to happen," he spat, his eyes wild with panic. "I was just testing it." Nia's eyes narrowed. "Testing it? What does that mean?" she demanded, her anger rising. She wanted answers, and she wasn't going to let him lie his way out of this. But before he could speak, Max's growl deepened, a clear warning. The man was not going to get away. The tension was thick as the officers began to restrain the man, and Nia knew this was just the beginning. The real fight, the true battle to uncover the full scope of the plot, was only starting. But for now, they had caught the one who had started it all. Max had saved the day once again. The room was tense. The suspect, Daniel Kraus, was on the floor, handcuffed and glaring up at Nia with defiance in his eyes. Max stood by her side, his muscles still, taut, his gaze never leaving the man. The weight of the situation hung in the air. This wasn't over. They had caught him, but the truth was still out there, hidden beneath layers of lies and deception. Kraus was no ordinary criminal. He was calm, almost too calm for someone who had just been caught trying to orchestrate something horrific. His eyes flickered with a mix of frustration and amusement, as if he already knew the game was up. "You're making a mistake," Kraus sneered, his voice laced with arrogance. "You think this is the end? It's just the beginning." Nia's patience was wearing thin. She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "What do you mean? Who are you working with? What's your plan?" Kraus smirked, his lips curling into a smug grin. "You're so naive, Officer Grant. This little teddy bear, it's just one part of a much bigger operation. You think you've got the whole picture? You're not even close." Nia's jaw tightened, the urgency building in her chest. This was more than just one stuffed animal. There was something much deeper at play, something that went beyond what they had uncovered so far. She could feel it. This was no random act. Kraus had been careful, methodical, and he was only one piece of the puzzle. Why? She pressed, her voice sharp. Why use a child? Why go through all this trouble? He chuckled darkly, leaning back against the wall. Children are easy targets. No one expects them to be a part of something like this, but you'll see. The plan was never just about one bear. It's already too late. Nia's mind raced as she pieced together his words. What did he mean by too late? What had they missed? She glanced at Max, who stood still, watching Kraus like a hawk. The dog's presence was a reminder of the danger still lurking. What else? Nia asked, her voice hardening. How many more are out there? How many more bears like this one have you gotten through security? Kraus's smirk widened. You've already missed a few. There's more. So much more. This isn't a one-time deal. Max's ears flicked at the mention of more. The pieces were falling into place, but Nia knew they didn't have much time. The clock was ticking, and the man in front of her wasn't giving up any real answers. Kraus's eyes gleamed with satisfaction, as if he knew he held the upper hand. You think this is a victory? You're playing checkers and I'm playing chess. Nia clenched her fists, her mind racing with the implications of his words. How many? She asked again, her voice tight with frustration. You'll never know. Kraus whispered, his voice dropping to a chilling level. But there are many more, and you won't stop them in time. The weight of his words hit like a punch to the gut. How many more stuffed animals like the one in the girl's hands had already been smuggled through airports, each one carrying a deadly secret? Nia could feel the fear building in her chest. This was bigger than they had ever imagined. Max growled softly, his eyes never leaving Kraus. The dog's instincts were right all along. This was far from over. Nia stood up straight, her resolve hardening. You're not getting away with this, she said, her voice steady and unwavering. We'll find every single one, and we'll stop you all. Kraus merely chuckled again, shaking his head. You'll try, he said with a glint of satisfaction in his eyes. But you're already too late. Nia knew one thing for certain now. The battle had just begun, and Max, her faithful canine partner, was going to help her see it through to the end. The airport, once a chaotic mess of sirens and uncertainty, had finally returned to its normal rhythm. The lockdown had ended, and the tension that had hung in, the air for what felt like hours slowly began to dissipate. People moved cautiously, their steps uncertain but relieved, as the shock of what had just happened began to sink in. Nia stood in the hallway, watching as the family, still shaken, but safe, was escorted to a private lounge. The little girl clutching her teddy bear had been through so much, and yet there was a quiet calm that had settled over her now. She wasn't alone. She had Max. Nia glanced down at her canine partner, Max, standing proudly by her side. His body was still, but his eyes, those wise amber eyes, spoke volumes. They had done it. They had stopped a disaster before it could unfold, and it was all thanks to him. The little girl walked slowly, her small hand wrapped tightly around her father's, her steps uncertain. But as soon as she saw Max, a soft smile broke through her fear. She knelt down in front of him, her hands trembling as she reached out. Max, ever the calm protector, lowered his head and nudged her gently. You're my hero, the girl whispered, her voice full of emotion as she hugged Max tightly. Thank you. Nia's heart ached at the words. She had seen Max do incredible things before, but this was different. He had protected not just the girl, but everyone in that terminal. Without him, there was no telling how much worse things could have gotten. Max remained still as the little girl clung to him, his tail wagging gently. He knew exactly what she needed, exactly what she wanted. The comfort he offered was more than just physical. It was the kind of peace only a dog like him could give. His bond with Nia had always been deep, but this was something more. The family, still processing everything that had happened, stood nearby. The mother, Her eyes, still red from tears, looked at Nia with silent gratitude. She didn't need to say anything. Her eyes spoke volumes. They all knew how close they had come to losing everything. "Thank you," the father said quietly, his voice hoarse with emotion. "We don't know what would have happened if it weren't for Max." Nia nodded, her gaze fixed on the little girl, who was now whispering to Max, her arms wrapped tightly around him. "It's my job," Nia said, her voice soft but resolute. "But he's the real hero." Max's gaze never left the girl as she finally pulled back, her smile wide despite the exhaustion in her eyes. For a brief moment, everything seemed right in the world. The danger was over. The threat was neutralized. The family was safe, and Max had done what he was trained to do, and more. As Nia watched, she couldn't help but feel the weight of the day's events lift from her shoulders. The case wasn't over. There were still questions to answer, and many pieces of the puzzle remained unsolved. But for now, in this moment, the danger had passed. And with Max by her side, Nia knew that they would always be ready for whatever came next. Together they were unstoppable. Max was more than just a partner. He was a hero. And today, the world had seen it.